Hi, my name is Jacob Richter. This is my writing partner and collaborator, Henry. Today we're going to talk to you about counterarguments and academic counterarguments in particular. Counterarguments are one of my favorite parts of any piece of academic writing. Counterarguments are where ideas justify themselves, where ideas clash. So we're back with slightly higher quality audio now. As I was saying, counterarguments are where ideas justify themselves, where ideas are put to the test, where ideas are put on trial, where you are able to test your idea versus what other people might say about it, where you're able to take your idea and consider various rebuttals. So our learning goals for this video are A, to establish an understanding of counterargument in theory, practice, and utility. B, to consider the implications of counterargument for writing, for rhetoric, and for persuasion. And C, to introduce an active learning activity which includes identifying, theorizing, and practicing the rhetorical strategy of counterargument. Now, if we were in class together in person, we would go through this active learning activity, but introducing it should do the trick for now. All right, so anyway, our working definition of counterargument is an argument or set of arguments put forward to oppose an idea or theory that is put forward in another argument. An argument or set of arguments put forward to oppose an idea or theory which is put forward in another argument. So counterarguments are considered a hallmark of academic writing at the college level. You may be familiar with counterarguments through other words or terms that reference similar ideas. Those words might include objection, disapproval, opposition, exception, protest, doubt, protestation, demurral, rebuttal, and criticism. Think of some typical everyday regular life examples of what a counterargument might prove its value in. The examples that I include here include a coach who was arguing with a referee. A divorce contract oftentimes would be full of counterarguments, would be full of a back and forth with rebuttals, with the positing of a claim, and then the attempt to disprove that claim. Something that's really important to note is that a counterargument makes your argument much stronger. A counterargument ultimately is meant to refute what someone else might say that disagrees with your thesis statement. So counterarguments oftentimes do end up following a little bit of a template format in which the thesis statement is posited either explicitly or implicitly, and then a informed writer determines what someone else would say, how they might disagree, and then refutes that counterargument. So I include this image right here. This is an example that I like to use to illustrate counterargument. If you were to take your thesis statement, your central overarching argument or goal for your writing project, and you handed it to 100 people in this image, some of them are going to disagree with you. Actually, many of them might disagree with you. That is humanity. That is that's the nature of rhetoric and dialectic and disagreement and dialogue. Counterarguments make your argument stronger by anticipating what others might say and then disproving that. So here's an example of a counterargument. The argument is that mint chocolate chip is the best ice cream flavor. This is going to be controversial. This is going to be heated. Someone, an informed writer making that argument, might include a section of their article that is geared around refuting counterarguments. So they might say strawberry is a better flavor of ice cream compared to mint chocolate chip because it has more vitamin C and is therefore healthier. Now, what's important with counterarguments is that it is not enough to simply cite a counterargument. What you have to do is you have to refute that counterargument. So you have to explain what other people are missing, what they're not considering heavily enough, what they are what they are not factoring in, what they're not thinking about, what they don't value enough, what they are not considering, why they're wrong, why they're incorrect, what they're missing. So to determine a counterargument, ask yourself, what is the audience thinking when they read your argument? What might a reader disagree with you on? And lastly, you can then explain why those voicing the counterargument are not correct, what are they missing or not considering, and how can you make your own argument clearer and more persuasive. So you see this diagram. This is a hierarchy of counterarguments We are going to, of course, stick right at the very top to refutation and to refuting the central point. But you'll see that bad counterarguments have what are called ad hominem attacks. Something like "you are an idiot" that attacks the characteristics of a person without actually attacking the argument, without actually disproving the argument. You'll see you want to be right in the counterargument, refutation, refuting the central point area, where you explicitly refute a central point and where you find mistakes and explain why they are incorrect, perhaps using quotations. Quotations just means evidence from a text. But anyways, so a counterargument is all about finding balance. It's all about, so you see this diagram, fire and water. It's about finding balance. It's about being fair. It's about being ethical. You don't want to do what's called a straw man argument, where you incorrectly say that someone would disagree with you on grounds when they really wouldn't. When you hold up a fake, plastic, false argument that someone else might say, and pretend that's an accurate statement of their point of view or their values when it's really not. You'll see here, these are some templates that you should copy down, that you should use in your actual writing itself. These are templates from a book called They Say, I Say, that show very text-based, quite literal formatting choices that you can mimic in your sentences to set up really strong counterarguments. So you'll see these are some templates for making concessions while still standing your ground. This is where you can say, okay, someone might disagree with me on grounds X, Y, and Z. They have good points related to this and that. However, what they're not factoring in enough, what they're not valuing enough, is my thesis statement, is my central argument. So you'll see I include this graphic. This is in Hong Kong. This is the umbrella protests, I believe in 2014, that have been renewed just more recently in 2019. Counterarguments are political at times. Counterarguments are how you differentiate your ideas and your points of view against, say, those of power, say, in this case, government agents in Hong Kong or the Chinese government. Active learning, collaborative counterarguments is an activity that I would like to have you all do. We're not going to bother. We don't have time, and we're not in person. But this is an activity that would include you going on to either procon.org or to kialo.org and finding a issue of choice for you. So something like tuition-free college, something like increasing the federal minimum wage. It would include you practicing writing a thesis statement that articulates a central core goal in simple, direct language, but then also gives kind of a heads up or a preview of the overall body paragraph clusters that would be used as evidence. And then you would write a counterargument to that thesis statement that proves that you're anticipating what someone else might say, how they might disagree with you, and you refute that counterargument. So to recap, the most important thing that you should take away from this video lesson, is that it is not enough to simply cite a counterargument, what someone might say to disagree with you, but you have to refute that counterargument. You must explain what that person is missing, what that writer or voice is not valuing highly enough, how you think differently than they do, what they're incorrect about. And just like that, we have a solid and firm foundation for writing academic counterarguments. Best of luck. If you have trouble or concerns or questions, you know how to reach me.